Hello there, and welcome to the Double Indemnity podcast. I'm your host, Toby Clegg, and alongside my co-host, the legendary Stuart Reid. And today we're thrilled to be joined by Tom Kirkland, who is the CEO of Cameron Specialty and a rising star of the London market. So welcome, Tom.
You're too kind, Toby.
If I verge into calling you TK, which is what you're known at throughout the market. So, Tom, I said to you recently, obviously we wanted to get you on the podcast because this is really kind of the first in the series of entrepreneurial discussions we want to have with people. You have taken that leap from leaving a very large broker, and you've obviously set up, and it's been a tremendous success so far. And I feel as if, in some respects, I get to interview the kind of Jeff Bezos of the insurance world at the very outset of their journey. So one day when you're a billionaire and we're going to have press teams outside and we won't be able to talk to you as freely, but it's obviously a great privilege to have you on now. But do you want to tell us a bit about yourself and about Cameron Specialty, how you set it up, and if I even start with the garden shed? What happened?
Yeah, well, look, thank you for having me, guys. I really appreciate and appreciate being the first of the entrepreneurs. That I might not call myself an entrepreneur, but it has been a journey, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I started over 20 years ago in a call centre in Croydon, 500 calls a day, which was fairly soul destroying, but you know it was an in. And a bit of a grounding into the insurance, which then progressed to sort of account handler. Stayed on the broking side at the early days. The opportunity came to move to London, the London outfit. There was a small team, which sort of got me exposure to the market and sort of showed me the Lloyd's way of working, which, you know, as London men, as London men, you know, it definitely sort of got me buzzing about sort of getting out on that road and progressing and seeing where we could go. And Cameron's been trading 5 years now. I started back in 2021 as a division of Profile Risk Solutions. I left the broking world after COVID, but predominantly doing ROI, heavy, high hazard business, recyclers, you know, all the jazz that no one else sort of wants to touch, and sort of progressed there, got some great contacts in the market, made some great friends. I then decided that maybe broking wasn't for me. We had a fairly young baby, and I thought, why not try it? If I don't give it a go now, you know, what have I got to lose? I can always get another job. So we did a deal. I left there in the early summer of 21. Had nowhere to go. Made a lot of calls. I had 3 months. You know, very amicable with CityNet. They were good, very good to me. First thing I did was bought a shed. I thought that could be a great HQ. The second thing, I moved my grandfather's desk into the shed. So a bit of heritage there. He was an insurance man, as was my father. So it was sort of in the blood. Yep. And had a bit of a dream and an idea. And I thought, you know, let's give this a good go. And I was very good friends with the underwriter at Nove, who was then HCC, Mr. McEwen, Scott McEwen. So I sort of rung him. I was putting together a line slip, and I said, look, would you back me on my own? You know, I know it's a bit unusual, and that was the start of it, really. The first year, I think we wrote about 3.2 million. And that was mainly me, myself and I, cradle to grave, so long hours, but loved it. Loved being on the phone, you know, in the grind of it, and being in that shed. And it's interesting, I sort of sit there and I'd picture, wouldn't it be nice to have an office in London? Wouldn't it be fantastic having this desk, or even some staff? Yep. and then, you know, I had the first member of staff, Lewis Adams, came and joined, and we used to share the desk. And I had a comfy plush leather chair, and he was on a metal rickety one. So it was ice cold in the winter and boiling hot in the summer. But we had some great fun. And
win counts, don't they?
Yeah, exactly that. And the vision started really progressing, and we got AXA XL on after that. So we had 2 great A-rated capacities. We've now got AXA, HCC, Brick, Carbon, Lancashire, Chubb.
All small companies,
and more on the horizon to come.
And writing the same breadth of...
Yep.
So is distressed business an unfair way of looking at it, or difficult business? How would you...
Touch point.
Yeah, so we started with that, and the market was a very different place. We started with the scrap metal dealers, the recycling, the skip owners, things like that. Scaffolders, but this was on the property side, so it's all the property stuff. And then as the business has grown, more competitors have come in, risk appetite with some of the insurers isn't quite there. And we wanted to stick to our ethos, and that is the rate that we feel is the right rate, the fair excesses, the proper conditions.
Doing it properly.
Doing it properly, and and touch wood, we made some money off the back of it, which off the results, we were very lucky as well. Anything that could have spiked in year 1, and
there's always a bit of luck.
But we were very fortunate, and we were able to use that data to then get on the other insurers. And really build something. I think there's 10 of us now. We're based in Lime Street. We've got a great young team. We've put people through the apprenticeship scheme to get them up to scratch.
Huge fan.
It was great. It was great for the business. It's been great for the guys.
And the desk made it as well.
The desk has made it.
It's got it from the shed to Lime Street. So.
Neil, the man with the van, and myself carried it up 10 flights of stairs. So it wasn't easy. I'm dreading having to move office because it will be a pain.
It's a good problem to have if you expand. So.
Lucky, I think the office is movable walls, so if we expand, we might just be able to take over the office next door.
And your product range has expanded since then, has it?
It has. We're in the process. So it was predominantly property, and that would be the commercial, residential. Yep. We've got liability coming on. Yep. We've employed some individuals that will be taking the business forward in that direction. I think the main thing for us is having that versatility as an MGA.
Yeah.
What we did and what we knew, that was the core of the business, and that won't ever change. We'll probably be about 10 million plus this year GWP, and that's all organic growth. That was from a standing start. The market, the way it is, we've had to diversify and get other lines of business, liability being one, which would be the natural route.
Sorry to interrupt. And brokers coming into you, is that how you get it? Or?
So, no, we actually employed someone from another MGA, someone that knew the skill, someone had the experience, and I think that's the key, right? I don't know everything, and I don't claim that I know everything. It's getting the right people into the business to help grow the business. For instance, we had investment from BP Marsh last June.
Brian Marsh, yeah.
And that's the conversation when I met Dan Toppin was, actually you're 4 years in, you don't need the investment. And I said, but my ambition and my drive, we could just continue and do well and grow that way, but I want to get there a bit quicker. I want to get some more heavy hitters in. Things like advertising, office space, from going from a broom cupboard to a 16-man office, you need the cash, and having that London base opposite Lloyd's, we don't get the footfall that we thought we would, but, you're in amongst it, people know where you are, it's easy to pop out and go to Leadenhall Market or to some of the other establishments locally, and have a coffee, have a pint, all that sort of jazz.
But people business. BP Marsh have an excellent track record, don't they, of doing exactly what you've asked them to do for yourselves?
Oh yeah, fantastic. I mean, look, I think their results recently were released, and it was increased by 33 million or something. And they're a minority share, but I can lean on them. And I think they don't dictate. For me personally, this is my baby. I built this from scratch, and I think I will always struggle with that. No matter how much the business grows, I always see it as my business, rightly or wrongly, and the other individuals, and we've got some other shareholders, and we've got some interesting names joining that are going to make a very big splash. So,
I mean, I should note I was at an event last week where TK was my guest, along with the managing director of the other firm that he'd poached the staff of. But I hadn't realised he'd poached them a day before. So so that made for an interesting...
It's an event with a capital E.
It was a good event, yeah. So very much dynamic in the market. But I mean, TK, there are obviously other brokers that will be listening, watching this and looking at it. And in the back of their mind, they've got a dream as well. And ultimately, you've lived that dream. What's so unique and so wonderful about your passion for it is that story, as you said, it's your baby, you've taken it forward. And we get a lot of people on these chairs in this studio who have made it. They run some of the biggest companies, get Ken Norgrove, Intact, everything else, but they all had to, in some respects, start at some point. And you're that next or latest generation of startups doing it. What kind of lessons would you say for the broking community, especially out there, and those that fancy doing a bit of MGA work, etc.? What's your core messages, and what are the lessons you've learned that you would say, learn from my mistakes, or at least this went well and you might want to replicate this?
I think getting the right people in around you, you know, and having that the shoulders to lean on and the conversations, because, you know, if you were to ask me 5 years ago, I would have probably laughed in your face about, you know, running a business. Where do you start? How, you know, and it's having that expertise and the knowledge of being able to do that. The grit. There's some very tough times. You know, I took a minimal wage for the first year that, you know, barely keeps you above the water if you're not financially sound. You've got to take the good and the bad with it. You know, there's, you know, I hate to keep going on. It's the highs and lows, right? You know, you're right in business, but you're not seeing the real reward at that point. You stick with it. The integrity, you know, the service. These are real things that I feel have driven us as a business, that treat everyone the same. We haven't ever got into bed with one particular broker, and then that makes it awkward, right? And if that broker then gets sold, then where does that lie? If you've not got a relationship with the other broker, treat everyone like you want to be treated. You know, just like common courtesy, right?
Yeah, that's exactly. You know, don't forget where you came from and treat everybody. I like the thought that, you know, certainly in running a business, you cannot be master of everything, okay? And so you do, you know, I think there's that classic question, isn't there, when people come in and interview you or whatever, they say, do you feel undermined by having someone below you who knows their speciality better than you? No. That's the whole reason I brought them in.
Bring them in, yeah. Bring more in.
But we touched on it just before we started filming. What's one of the biggest strengths of our business, particularly in your market, is it's a people business. Not just in running your own company, but in the relationships you build with the people that supply you business. Lime Street, great place to be, right? You would agree, would you, that people aspect, even with all the technology, the AI coming and everything else, that is still fundamentally important to success? Oh,
look, it's the core of the industry, right? That was how insurance came about from conversations in coffee shops. You know, I think that will never change, especially in the London market. I think for someone like myself, I wasn't particularly academic at school. You know, I wasn't massively sporty, but I was very sociable. And getting into London and having that opportunity to talk to people, to hear people's stories, you know, you never know who you're going to meet. And over the last few years, I've met some really interesting and charismatic people, you know, like yourself, Toby.
I'll take that.
He's got 3 personalities.
You know, and I think that's that, and it's doing it the right way. It's meeting people for the merit of who they are, not what they can do for you. And people see straight through that. If you try and tap someone up just because they're the head of something, rather than just having a conversation and hitting it off, right? There should be like an open conversation. Someone said, you know, when I was a broker, never lie. If someone asks you a question you don't know, that underwriter will respect you more. But
saying I don't know,
I'll come back to you. And
yeah, I mean, trust can be easily given, but if it's broken once, I think it's time to walk away, frankly. And that's how you build those relationships, right?
Very true, very true. And actually, that's an interesting one. You mentioned underwriters and trust. I mean, what was that moment like when you picked up that phone and said, "Can I have some capacity, please"? I mean, was there a moment beforehand where you thought, "Oh God, right, I've got to break cover and do it"? Was it just Was there big presentations you teed up, or was it just, I'm just going to go for this and make the phone call?
I think I just went for it, to be honest with you. I had a lot of conversations. I knew what I could do. And, you know, as silly as that sounds...
Back yourself, yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
But if you don't back yourself, no one else is going to, are they?
Hey, look, I'm a gambling man to a degree, and, you know, I think we all are, you know,
Well,
insurance is a gamble. Yeah, exactly, you know. And I think that it was an awkward conversation, but they believed in me. And it's like the time I met Dan for the first time. He could see something. You know, they don't invest in the business, they invest in the person.
Very true.
And my ambition and drive, you know, why can't we be like the next Eventum Group? What's to stop you? I think insurance is a very special industry that you go as far as you want to go. There's opportunities there, you know. I don't think we could move forward with anything else.
We need ambition in the industry. That's one of the key things. And ultimately, that ambition that obviously that you've shown is absolutely infectious. It helps drive your team as well. But moreover, it goes beyond that. It cuts to the heart of what the industry actually needs going forward. We need TKs out there. If you're going to go and expand, as you've mentioned to me in the past, you'd like the idea of doing Europe. I mean, that is a pretty big jump. But at the same time, it's one that obviously is done on the back of trust on your original carrier relationships and everything else as well. So, I mean, how do you see, in terms of your own ambitions, are you just going to go for it?
Yeah, 100%. You know, again, it's getting the right individuals in. You know, as we expand, you know, I've got ambitions to look at M&As ourselves, different territories. You know, maybe a broken arm. There's so much opportunity there. And
You got some money in your back pocket at the moment.
Well, we have, you know, and that is the beauty of it. You know, we can lean on them for that. That is a key part of getting the investment. You know, it's not cheap money, and again, that's a gamble, but it's an educated gamble that if you get the right people in, then you can grow and expand.
But that's a good point, because I mean we're in the midst of a soft market, so everyone's moaning about it. But equally, interest rates are not historically high. My dad will remind me when he used to pay it's like 15, 18%, whatever it was back in the day.
80%.
Oh, and so it is, but it's still pronounced enough, right?
Yeah.
So the point is, if you start something in this somewhat challenging environment now, because it's not all just gravy at the moment, then you're poised for the whole market. You're poised for a much better time to come, and lower interest rates potentially if they come.
Yeah, you know, I think we, as a monoline to a degree business as at present, until we get the liability fully over the line, you know, we've got to look at other ways of bringing in the income, because there's only so much business. And as you quite rightly say, you know, the competitors out there, they're getting more capacity. They might be offering certain other covers that we can't throw in. So it's like we've got to look at it and think, well, where can we be different from that? You know, and we're not trying to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
It's just give a more offering.
Yeah,
But I mentioned in an earlier chat that we had that, you know, I think the significant minority of people who are working for businesses that they never chose to work for. So I think something like your business, lighter on its feet, easy to talk to management, cause and effect is a small gap, absolutely appeals to to people who've joined businesses that have suddenly become part of a massive organisation and find it very, very difficult to have a voice or to get decisions made.
Well, they can go to the pub with the boss.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think
Friday night.
It's a big thing.
I think that I'm very much of the opinion that it's our business, and that, you know, from whether you're doing the data input to sitting on the sort of big desk at the top of the table, you know, it's very much, you know, I want to breed that or instill that work ethic. We're in it together, you know, the good times, the bad times. We've gone right over budget. Let's go and celebrate, you know. This is for everyone, you know, the greater goods, and you know, and then our turnover of staff is very small, you know, and that's detriment to the business. It's a nice place to work.
Yeah.
It's trying to be like a family business, you know. And the head of ops is my sister, you know. Her background was or the managing director, apologies, that she, you know, we promoted her to. Her background's the composite markets.
Yeah.
I was from a broking background.
So it's complementary.
Very much so. I'm a front man with a tambourine, and you know, she's holding everything together and raising the bar with it. You know, we wouldn't have a computer system if it wasn't for her. The policy wordings wouldn't have gone, you know, levelled up completely if it wasn't for her. So I'm fully aware of that, and that's great to be able to have that in the business.
I like that, and for the benefit of viewers and watchers, there are brokers, and this is why it's kind of an entrepreneurial series, to hear someone who's taken the embryo of an idea and to build it into a successful business and got investment, which is fantastic. And it's almost that notion that it's not science. Like, I'm sure when you started up with your business plan, a lot of people get hooked up. I'm like, oh, I haven't got a business plan. I don't know the exact numbers. I don't know that. You can almost talk yourself out of it. How, in your experience so far, and I know it's something we talked about offline, as it were, you've just gone for it. You've just very much taken that. And how much of that is just gut instinct and just saying, sod the accountant, sod this, I'm going to go make a deal of it and I'm going to make it happen?
Yeah, I think you've, you know, as we said earlier, you've got to believe in yourself. If you don't back yourself, you're never going to get off the ground. You know, it was very lonely at times and it was very stressful. But if you keep that belief and you keep that drive, and it's like, right, rather than just sitting there, how am I going to get more business through the door? Yeah. On the phone, tapping people up.
Going the extra mile.
Going that extra mile. What can I do? You know, we were a tail-end Charlie market. We had a 3 million line to start. I think we're up to over 20 million per location now. You know, and it's grown in the right way. We haven't just sort of gone out there and tried to get whacking lines and writing laundrettes, you know, and woodworkers and things like that.
They're the next 3 risks I had, actually.
Yeah.
I was going to get to write them.
I think we're running out of time.
Yes. Right, we usually end by asking if there's anything, any view you've got, particular frame of mind on something controversial or thought-provoking you'd like to leave us with and leave our viewers and listeners with.
I think the technology would be a good one, you know. Yeah. Will that ever take over the London market, or is it just the core relationships and the personal relationships?
It will heighten the core relationships and the people bit.
You know, I don't think a robot could do this, personally.
Yeah, facilitate you having longer lunches.
Augmented humans.
You know you're doing well if you've had lunch and dinner on the same day and not moved from the table.
Frequently. I'll keep up with the fat jabs in the meantime.
Great stuff.
Well, nice. Tom, what a pleasure. And as I say, so good to speak to you now. It'd be interesting in 10 years' time to see where you're at. We'll probably be visiting you in one of your own towers. What do you reckon?
Probably be in the box.
Thank you for your time, guys. Appreciate
brilliant.
it.
And thank you very much for viewing and listening today. And obviously we look forward to seeing you next time on Double Indemnity. Goodbye.
Thank you.